Welcome not to Analyzing the Magnus Archives, but to a new event, I should call it, here on the Analyzing Archivists channel. Welcome to Protocol Bash.
Protocol Bash, Protocol Bash, Protocol Bash.
Protocol Bash, Protocol Bash, Protocol Bash. This is going to be hopefully a 3-part event of episodes on the channel where we will cover all of Season 1 of the Magnus Protocol, the, as Jonathan Sims calls it, the side quill to the Magnus Archives. Not really a sequel, but not necessarily a side thing, so a side quill is what he calls it. And all of this is in lead up for Magnus Protocol Season 2, which is coming out February 27th. Comes back to us weekly episodes, which hopefully will be pretty cool to cover that week by week when that comes out. Although
it's almost been a full year since the first
it has been,
out,
because Protocol started in like October of last year, I believe.
I don't remember.
Let's see. Release date is
the first month.
Oh, so January of last year.
Yeah, almost. Well, it's been more than a full year.
So yeah,
is crazy to think about.
Yeah, because
the Magnus Empire continues.
It does indeed. It does indeed. So yes, that is exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be reviewing episodes 1 through 10 of the Magnus Protocol here, 11 through 20 in the next part, and then 21 through 30 in the final part leading up to the Season 2 premiere on January 27th. So with that all the way, we're kind of going to be just doing like a very quick recap of like the various episodes and the cases that go along with them, which aren't, cases, not statements. Also, spoilers. Ollie, I'm looking at you still. Spoilers for the entirety of the Magnus Archives. If you haven't listened to all of that, you definitely should.
Yeah, they say that you can listen to Protocol without listening to Magnus Archives. I don't think it's necessarily what you should do.
You can do it, and I've actually seen a lot of people discover like this whole universe through Protocol, which is very interesting to hear from like their sides of view on the subreddit r/the Magnus Protocol, and it's interesting how people like I've seen a couple things where some people listen through all of Protocol and then in like a month has binged all of Magnus Archives.
Wow.
Yeah. Or I think someone said they did it in a weekend. I don't believe them. That's a lie.
It's like back-to-back nonstop on 0.2.
70, what? 3 days of 72-hour grind.
Yeah, and you have to have it on like times 3.
Times 3. You have like 5 episodes playing at a time.
It's like, at Archivist and Magnus Street. Jonathan's.
Extended sounds of brutal pipe murder. With that all out of the way, though, we are going to be getting into the first episode here, in which we get introduced to a few characters, actually. In this, unlike the Magnus Archives, starting off as more of an anthology series, this delves straight into the quote-unquote workplace comedy that the Magnus Archives is so heavily associated to be.
Yeah, this is an actual workplace comedy.
Yes, love Bonzo.
Bonzo, workplace icon.
Workplace icon. So again, since this is kind of a review, I was thinking we actually just kind of like go through everything episode by episode and just talk about everything we know leading up to. So like various stuff, like so just this is just a general spoiler blanket for everything that we're talking about everything here in review and just subsequent knowledge of everything we have in our possession leading up to the Season 2 release. With that out of the way, though, we are going to begin with the first episode.
Do we want to even start further back to the trailer?
Oh, that's actually very... Yes, I did listen to that, like, literally, like, an hour ago. Starting to record this.
I love the music for the trailer. I remember sending it to you when it first came out, too, and we were both freaking out about it.
Yes, because it incorporated... I'm probably going to play a little bit of it here, but you should go check it out. The Protocol theme, in my opinion, is really solid. And
it's good.
I don't know if I like the Archives theme or the Protocol theme more. the archives theme is just really iconic. The violin and the like shutting down of like it gives you a feel that you're in a giant warehouse and the lights are flickering on or off. It's a big thunk, thunk, thunk.
It's kind of like Magnus Archives, but Baja Blast.
Baja Blast, Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Yes, because with the archives theme, it is a violin, and then in this protocol theme, I saw somewhere that it was a bass and a cello that was used to make it.
Really cool.
Yes. Samama Khalid, he's voiced by Sahan Hamazan. I'm so sorry for
We
these
live
people.
in rural America. I apologize.
Rural small town America. But yes, we get introduced to our main character, Sam, being interviewed for this job at the OIAR.
Office of Incident Assessment and Response.
Yes. And the interviewee being Lena, who is voiced by Sarah Lambie, the director at the OIAR. I have a fun little interaction.
It starts with computer started noises too.
Yes.
So there's like old computer rebooted noises.
Yes.
We get beamed into this office.
And
Lena is like, "So Sam, welcome to the job. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?" And he's like, "Okay."
He's like, "Oh, okay." Again, another thing that you'll notice if you listen to Protocol, whereas in the Magnus archives, we, the audience, listen through mostly, actually, all just cassette tapes, either being recorded on or, magically turned on by the various entities.
I like to think they have little legs. They like skid around.
Skid around.
Yeah.
Here, we see a lot of very different ways that we, the audience, are viewing these characters as a podcast. CCTV, computers will turn on and it will just start listening. Very good sound design, especially being almost 9 years after the start of Magnus Archives.
They have a landline recorder at one point.
Yes, that, yeah.
Yeah, a few things. Basically, anything technological you think can listen to you, they put it in here.
We love Colin. Bless Colin.
Colin is doing the work.
He's doing his best. So anyways, Lena is interviewing Sam for this job at the OIR. She mentions that Alice highly speaks of him. Alice, who is Alice Dyer, did this.
They went to university together, basically.
Yes, Sam and Alice have a good past together. They're friends. She is voiced by Billy Hindle.
She's an icon.
An icon.
If you haven't stalked her social media, you need to go do it. She is the best.
Yeah, Lena tells basically Sam that he's essentially overqualified for this job. Sam, seeing this as a good thing, Lena is saying he shouldn't get this job. He should go somewhere else. This job isn't the type for him.
Basically, it's a night job that no one really likes.
Yes.
And people have a tendency to go insane for it.
Yeah, that's what she tells him.
So they just cycle through employees all the time. But...
Yeah. Sam is a bit confused by this. Lena just asks him what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, or what's the worst thing you've ever seen.
I have a direct quote here.
All right, let's go.
My keyword is popped up? Okay. You've seen a friend or relative die, perhaps, an accident, maybe some kind of violent crime. Sam does not answer. Something stranger then. Maybe something you've never been able to explain and no one would ever believe. Be honest now, Sam, or I can't offer you the job. And Sam's just like, yeah. and then she's like, we'll keep in touch, bye.
Yeah, and that's the trailer. That's the trailer for this.
Yeah, but fantastic trailer for being like 5 minutes long or something.
I think it was like 3 minutes long.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
But
got everyone like in the spooky mood.
Yes, that was released October of wait, hang on. 11/10. Wait, they do it backwards because British. Or not backwards. I think it's the correct way. It should be date, month, and year. But we're Americans, so we have to read it month, day, and then year. So my little dumb brain can't comprehend that. So, anyways, yes, October 11th of 2023 is when the trailer released. And it wouldn't be until. Let me pull this up here. It wouldn't be until January. I don't think that's right. Nope, January 18th. Huh.
Wow.
Interesting. So yeah, I suppose it would be about 3 months later, we would actually get the first episodes of Protocol. Patreon. That's right. They released episodes early on Patreon.
Yeah, but not like months early.
Probably not months early, no.
Yeah, a little
But
bit.
anyways, it would be months later till the general audience, us, would get to know these lovely workers of the OIAR. The first episode really just introduces us to everyone at Teddy's farewell party. Teddy Vaughn, voiced by Kazim Tassin Amor, who is being replaced by Sam.
He's getting a normal job soon, anyway.
Yes, a normal electrician, something or other. A normal job, quote unquote. He does not like the OIAR, hence his leaving. But everyone's throwing a goodbye party at 6 a.m. Because remind you, these people work night shifts, so 6 in the morning is really late for them.
Yeah, they have a little bit later where they go to the pub, and it's like the morning, and they're having
it's probably like noon or like midday.
Yeah.
And they're at the pub.
Anyways, so Alice and Teddy are talking. Colin walks in. Colin, he's a little bit tipsy.
He's a little tipsy. Colin, who is...
It's mentioned that he works for IT.
Yes, Colin Becker, who is voiced by Ryan Hopavira Anderson, is the IT manager at the OIAR.
But basically, they're talking about Sam. They're mentioning how Gwen and Lana can both be awful people.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a little work party.
Yes, little work party. Gwen. Oh boy! So, Gwendolyn, or Gwen Bouchard, is voiced by Anusia Battersby. Battersby. Is another employee at the OIAR. And, of course, if you listen to the Magnus Archives, you hear that name, Bouchard, and you sound offended, and you hear off in the distance, like the piper playing its tune, some extended sounds of brutal pipe murder.
Yeah, I think the cast list dropped early, and people were just freaking out about this.
Yes, like weeks leading up to the event.
I don't think there's been any connection still.
Not yet. There has not been any connection.
Not any permanent ones, at least.
Yes, probably theories, I assume. There's many theories as to how Gwen is related to Elias Bouchard, or even this universe's Elias Bouchard. Which again, we'll get to that a whole lot more, especially in the later parts. She's not really like bigly prominent in like this first chunk. This part 1 of the first season is what I'm going to be calling it. But yes, she shares a last name with at least this universe's Elias, which we'll see how the two different universe things play out later on. Elias later teaches Sam about their whole... Alice, sorry.
There you go.
Elias teaches Sam about...
You did it again.
I said Elias. Alice! Oh my god. Okay.
You know Elias Bouchard is the guy? He's like, he's in the office, by the way.
So Alice eventually teaches Sam about the various paperwork, the response to one-to-one sort of dealios that they do.
They have this huge manual, and basically it's complicated. And
yes.
Their whole job is get like, wrote this down.
Basically, they will review like incidents or things people will like report in, I suppose.
They don't comport them. So computers search online databases for incidents, flag them, and pass them for assessment, and then these people have to sort them. And it's like this government department made back when the hippies were a thing. That they tried.
Yes.
They should have deleted it, but it just like stayed on.
Yes. When Alice shows Sam one of the computers that gets turns on, Sam initially is like, "Oh my God, is this Windows 95?" And Alice is like, "No, it's better. It's a Windows NT 4.0, the business predecessor to Windows 95."
Basically, they shouldn't be functioning at all. And
should not. Colin doesn't know how they're working at all. Colin has no clue how anything is running.
Destroy them.
He wants to break everything.
He has proposed this to Lena multiple times, and she's just like, "We can't break them. We have no funding."
So yeah, this is when there's like a program on these computers that like sorts through the databases and collects these various incidents called FR3-D1, which Alice calls Freddy. And she explains how it crashes if you try to update it. It's just really faulty. It does not is not compatible with any sort of new tech. And yeah, Freddy's function is to just search online databases for newspapers, forums, various incidents, and pass them on to the employees of the OIAR to sort them into various categories.
And so Sam's kind of talking to Alice about this, and he's filling out some paperwork, and he mentions that there's a box with response 121 on the form. Alice says it used to be a separate response department, and he can just ignore it. I think it might be important later.
I think that's important to the whole, we'll discuss this in like part 3, I believe, of what the protocol is. I believe that has something to do with
I think
this.
It's important just to mention that, to get it out there.
So after that, Alice shows how they catalog the cases, which are this series' statements, basically. Very complicated. It like makes sense, and she explains it. Do I remember? No. Do I remember how the Archives universe, Gertrude does it? Yes, because that's simpler. But no, this is a whole new thing, a whole new weird system. So like she begins to file a case with the incident code CAT2RC 1157-12052022-9 or 09012024.
I think we won't be reading out these numbers like
no,
we did
I
for
do
the
not
rest
want
of the
to.
podcast.
If anything, if I want to, I will put them on the screen.
Yeah, basically they're really long.
Really long. But as she enters this into the system, a voice rings about. And this is where Alice introduces us to the 3 voices that somehow this old technology has text-to-speech, and will very rarely, the one of 3 voices will be read out to, will read out these incidents on the computers.
2 important things about this. Number 1, you can't skip the statements.
No.
And number 2, the software shouldn't be able to do this.
No, not this old software should have text-to-speech, which Sam notes as very odd. And I think when he brings it up to Colin at one point, and Colin just grumbles and walks away.
Yeah, Alice mentions there's 3 voices: Norris, Chester, and Augustus. Norris and Chester are the most common. If you've listened to the Magnus Archives, it will sound very familiar.
Yes, Norris, who is voiced by our boy Alexander J. Newell.
Who is Martin Blackwood.
Martin Blackwood, and he's the Bone Turner. Jared Hopworth, also.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he voices Jared Hopworth. But yeah, Alexander J. Newell, who is like a big producer guy at the Rusty Quill, voices Martin Blackwood. Jared Hopworth in the Magnus Archives voices this Norris voice here. And then there is also Chester, who is voiced by Jonathan Sims. One thing I will note here randomly, there's not a lot of John names in Protocol.
So far in Protocol. I think the reason being is that other people are writing. No.
Oh, that's so true.
I
forget there's
writing,
like guest writers.
Yeah, Johnny's rare obtain.
Rare writing of names.
Yeah.
And then, so yes, Jonathan Sims, of course, voices himself, that prick, in the Magnus Archives, the sort of main character boy. And then there is Augustus, who's rarer to get than the other 2, who's voiced by a man named Tim Farron. And in the Magnus Archives, that name will not sound familiar because he did not voice anyone in the Magnus Archives. Although there are theories, many theories that we could probably do a little tangent on for a moment right now if we could. So the main theory that is going on is after the events of Mag 200, after the series finale of the Magnus Archives, there is the most popular theory that I see is that somehow the entity of the web either stole or has our boy Johnny Sims, Martin, and the essence of Jonah Magnus, who was inhabiting Elias Bouchard's body.
They got stuck on the computer.
Yes, basically in this universe, however swapped this is, or alternate universe, whatever, their voices or their souls basically got Sergei Yushchenko'd into these machines. And of course, this is prominent by, Norris sounds like Alexander J. Newell, Chester is voiced by Jonathan Sims, and the exception that Augustus is voiced by this new person, Tim Farron, which is actually accurate because in the Magnus archives, we never heard Jonah Magnus's voice because he possessed Elias Bouchard's body. So it would make sense that it would be this new person, and that is the ongoing theory, unless Johnny Sims and whoever else is writing this is just giving us the middle finger and it's just some random other person. Which I could see that, to be honest. I was gonna say something else, but yeah, other things lead to that. That's the factor. One of things we'll cover later when Celia joins the team, and she recognizes Norris's voice and asks if asks who used the voice to record these or whatnot. Since she is a character we will discuss, and she is actually a part of the Magnus Archives universe coming to here, and it's a whole thing. But anyways, we continue on.
The voices only started a year ago too.
Yes, the voice only started recently.
Colin thinks something is broke and wants to smash the computers with their hammers.
Sam also is very kind of processing this first case.
And the voices get more human towards the middle of the statement. That's also really important. So they start off really, really robotic, and then in the middle they sound like normal people talking, and at the end they switch back to robotic.
That's very interesting. I did not catch that.
You should listen for next time. It's freaky, but Colin actually learned German to try and decipher the system because it was written in German. And he's like, it didn't help at all.
Didn't help.
Sam's like, you should go to vacation in Germany, and Colin's like, what is a vacation? I think that's important.
This is when we get to our first little case. We get to our first little case, which is an email dated of May 12th of 2022 from Harriet Winstead to Darla Winstead regarding a familiar, strange figure in a cemetery that she believes to be her deceased loved one. So Harriet lost someone close to her named Arthur and was struggling with grief. She had been talking with someone who claimed could bring Arthur back, received a phone call telling her to go to Arthur's grave that very night.
At Grand Cemetery.
Grand Cemetery, yes.
Grantham.
And what? Grantham? Grantham?
The Grantham.
The Grantham Cemetery. Harriet knew that, she maybe figured out that it might have been a scam, decided to go anyway, because of grief. And as she approached Arthur's grave, she saw the figure standing there by it. The figure was what she's described the wrong shape to be Arthur, a little funky, but it spoke to her in his voice. It approached Harriet, and she saw that it had a discolored skin, mismatched various features about it.
Before this too, she asked about him, and she says it's some of him. He's like, I'm some of them.
Some of them. It moves with jerky steps, and something was pressed against its skin from the inside. Harriet asks him if it was Arthur. It replied, oh, some of them. And it started to laugh violently and throw its head back and forth. Very weird. To the point where it its bones were breaking in the neck area as it's thrashing its head back and forth.
Yeah.
Harriet runs home, obviously, and she just keeps thinking about she sees something at the bottom of the garden, and she was too afraid to go back. She asks Darla if she could stay at her place, and she thinks it's Arthur that she's afraid of, is this weird thing. So, again, we already, even with this first little case, I wanted to say statement, very different tonally to Magnus Archives, and we're gonna get into a lot of that, of course. Very different tonal shifts with everything in Protocol. So after that, Sam is again taking it back. Alice basically says that like all the incidents are like upsetting and horrible, and he should just ignore them. And she usually just she'll usually let the voice talk and then go back and skim through the case.
Gwen makes fun of his sorting system. Like Gwen comes in, she's like, "You're doing it wrong."
Yeah, so Sam is like, I will file this under zombies, which Alice.
Gwen.
Gwen comes in. It's just like, no reanimation, and warns Sam of getting a misfile. Alice tells him that that it's rare to get a misfile anyways, on a case that nobody, the fact that nobody checks them.
Yeah, they basically just ship these up to the void as well, as everyone knows.
They go nowhere as far as everyone's concerned, and they're just the only people that they essentially knows these exist. Gwen says that it should be filed under reanimation, partial regret, and Alice suggests that this dedication to specifics is why Gwen is so far behind on her work. A point which Gwen rebutes by saying she has the highest accuracy rate in the office. Alice emphasizes to Sam that this rate means nothing.
Yeah.
Lena then calls Gwen into her office. She takes note of how far behind Gwen is on her work, and reprimands her for being disrespectful of her in front of Sam at the initial party. And Lena is aware that Gwen dislikes her, and this is when we get the hints in the beginnings of Lena and Gwen's rivalry, quote unquote, or more just dislike and distrust of one another. Gwen replies that she wants to take Lena's job, becoming the head director of the OIR. Lena points out that most people move on within 12 months, and that Gwen has been here for very long, in fact. She says Gwen does not have what it takes to reach her position, and Gwen just leaves angry.
Yeah. And then we get CCTV footage with Sam talking to Cullen. I don't have
about the app.
In there. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So Alice has this kind of teasing joke going on with Colin about an app he's making because the system is so bad, and so he gets really upset at Sam, basically, and Sam's like, Alice told me to say it, don't blame me, and that's the whole thing. And then after that, we have another case that comes on and is read out loud.
Yes, this one is read out by Chester, so voiced by Johnny Sims.
It's from Splunking Sites.
Yes, so this case is read out loud is about chat logs dating from April 10th of 2022 to May 9th of 2022 on forums.lostcityurbanx.com. I tried looking that up, that's nothing. Regarding the exploration of the Magnus Institute ruins, case assessed by Sam and read out by Chester on January 9th of 2024. So, another thing that we should mention in at least this protocol universe. You all know from listening to the Magnus Archives that the Magnus Institute, London. No. In the protocol universe, the Magnus Institute was located in Manchester.
It's burned.
And it was burned badly, and it was essentially burned down to the ground and not reused or rebuilt for whatever reasons.
Yeah, but this person is I've heard so much of it, but there's very little evidence online, no pictures or everything.
Yes.
So user Red Canary goes on an adventure.
Yes, he starts a thread on forums.lostcityurbanx.com wanting to go spelunking in the ruins of the Magnus Institute, Manchester. Red Canary visits the site anyways, even though it was cleared by a moderator named Devin, and inform members of the forum of their findings. According to the account, the ruins looked like they had not been touched by the fire that happened around 20 years ago. The third floor had gotten lots of damage, scorches could be seen, no old papers were present, and as was expected, however, and Red Canary remarks the lack of paper, dust, or signs of any documents that might have been destroyed. And that there is evidence of a massive library or potential archive on the first basement floor that has been cleared out. The institute was described as having a Victorian asylum vibes. Old graffiti in the form of symbols was seen. Alchemy. um, Along with some like suspicious stains on the floor. Uh, Red Canary becomes increasingly paranoid after the visit and unable to upload any photos taken to the forum after revealing that they had taken an empty wooden box with similar weird symbols on the site. They were sent threatening DMs when they spoke out about receiving death threats on the forum, and it was revealed by forum members that they're not allowed to send each other direct messages, implying that the messages were sent by some other being. When pressed again for photos, a picture containing some forms of eye-related gore was uploaded to the thread, accompanied by a comment, "Canaries should stay above ground." Due to the site's policies, the image was removed and Red Canary's account was banned. A final comment on the thread inquiries what happened to Red Canary, and the thread was locked. So again, lots of more learning from that about this new universe. The Magnus Archives is located in Manchester. It was burned down about 20 years ago, so like in the early 2000s.
Especially, go look at what a canary in a coal mine is, if you don't know already. Okay, so basically, miners would take canaries below ground with them, and they would like sing when they were high levels. I think it was CO2, and they would know to get out.
That's interesting.
They actually created like little boxes to keep them safe in because they died every once in a while. So,
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's interesting. So Sam again is also visibly shaken by this. Very, very shaky boy. Gwen tells Sam that he's just gonna have to toughen up and work through it. Sam says that the case simply like just threw him a new one, basically. And he asks Gwen if she's ever heard of the Magnus Institute, and calls its appearance in the case a blast from the past. Alice Alice walks in and then offers Sam a drink in, again, the early morning at the pub. They work night shifts. Sam thanks Alice for the job, of course, and when he asks if Alice thinks the cases are real, she advises Sam not to think too deeply about them and to think of them as words on a screen. Back at the OIAR, I believe this is... Yes, this is... So we cut back to a computer turning on, and back at the OIAR, Colin is rummaging through his desk and just like speaking to a screen, saying that he knows someone is listening. He vows to find them.
Is listening.
He knows the computer is listening specifically, and he turns it off.
And it ends there. Episode 2, Making Adjustments. Okay, so we get the computer booting up again. Sam and Gwen are talking about categories, and Alice shows up a little bit late. And we get another case that comes up, and it starts talking to us. Yes. I think it's...
no, it's not a case. It's a camera. It's a video recording, or video call. In a therapist's office. A patient named Daria, who is voiced by Kate Sketchlin. Never mind, it's the therapist. The therapist, voiced by Jenny Hoffick, is a person who previously appeared on the Magnus Archives Mag 187. That's it. So yes, the case. A video call in a therapist's office. A patient named Daria
has been ordered government-ordered therapy.
Government-ordered therapy.
Is the thing. Basically, she starts and she's like, "I've always hated the way I look." So she decides she needs a tattoo bigger than the one she already had, and she kind of like scours the internet. And this person named Ink 5 Soul. So it's like Ink Soul with a 5.
Yeah, Ink Soul, take out the S, replace it with a 5, the hip kids sort of way as we do it.
And Ink Soul is like, I'll give you a large discount if you give me a photo shoot. And so they kind of agree on this like vivid floral serpent design. Daria goes in to get the tattoo, and she's kind of expecting them to talk about what the tattoo is going to be, and instead she's like only stuff about her life.
Yeah. Only asking about your life and how you look. How do you perceive yourself? Do you like the way you look?
And why you want a tattoo? Which makes sense. And then she starts to get that tattoo, and it's like live streamed.
Yeah, it's live streamed, and Daria is also like uncomfortably like this ink soul keeps asking her various questions about her life. So floral serpent tattoo. They reach the topic about her job being an artist, with the revelation that she wants to be an artist as well. They exclaim that the artist becomes the canvas eventually. Artist becomes the canvas. So yes, they start live streaming, rushing on top of the like starting of her tattoo, with again not discussing any previous like arrangements of like how it's going to be gone about sort of stuff. And then they start tattooing on her left arm, and it's so incredibly painful that she like just passes out. When she is conscious again, a beautiful paintbrush is the design that is on her left arm,
and it looks healed.
Yeah, it looks healed. It doesn't hurt. It's just very weird, and not even. And
Daria just kind of goes home.
Yeah,
like she's basically shoved out the door. She goes home and she's like, "Finally, I look interesting."
She feels this like passion to paint a self-portrait for the first time in her life. For a brief moment, she's not ashamed of her looks. She is confident. Good for Daria. Up until
so she spends hours with oils and paint, and she describes like the palette knife scraping her bone.
Yes,
she's trying to make herself perfect.
She's trying to make herself perfect in this painting. So yeah, she describes how she uses a palette knife to scrape into her bones, feeling no blood, no pain, no damage, but trying to sculpt herself, essentially.
And at one point, her tattoos begin to like flow over her. They're leaking.
Yes, they're like leaking, going away, and she panics more.
Yeah, and then her housemate gets back.
Yeah.
His name is Sarah, and starts screaming and calls the ambulance.
This is why she had government-mandated court, as this was essentially ruled as a suicide, because she she basically trying to kill her from like her own paint supplies.
Is what they said, but there's probably more going on
than
that. And then it ends with her talking to the therapist and being like, "I haven't made any adjustments since the ambulance was called and put in suicide watch because I'm waiting for inspiration."
Yes. Very weird. Very weird, very creepy.
And it ends there.
Yes.
And then Sam is like, "Whoa, that was freaking." Alice is like, "If you want to survive, you just have to skim the content. You can't think about it."
Can't think about it. Come on, man. Chop, chop. We got work to do. And then we hear like a sound of like electronic like.
The CCTV
is back. Alice and Gwen are heard speaking to one another. Alice is in shock. Gwen claims that Lena is planning redundancies.
She's trying to outsource, is what they think.
Yes. Gwen overhears Lena mention expanding external operations, which Gwen believes is a euphemism for, again, outsourcing. Alice is not sure Lena can even fire any of them, as it would probably take years to get paperwork in order, just to do solely to the fact that like this is such like an isolated sort of like tight ship that they run, basically. But Gwen points out that Lena could very well have started the process years ago. In the office, Alice receives a call from her brother Luke that we learn about, who is a part of a band called the Drudgermen. Alice notes that Sam is researching the Magnus Institute and reprimands him for it. She advises him to compartmentalize and not let the work consume.
And also, I think it's important to say that this case is confirmed to have been inspired by the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. But apparently there's some inspiration that came from that to make this. And it was written, I think, by Alex, right?
Oh, this episode? Yeah, this episode
was
written by.
But interesting tidbit.
Hello, Editing Jack here. I just wanted to say that my audio is going to suck for the next 15 to 20 minutes. I'm pretty sure my microphone died at this point in the recording, so you're going to be hearing me muffled through Hazel's mic, which honestly, me being muffled isn't necessarily a bad thing. So please just enjoy the rest of this video and it will get fixed eventually. Thank you.
Okay. Anything to say on this one?
Other than that, in official transcripts, the alternate title for this episode was Tweaking.
And this happens with a lot of ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of alternate titles, except they didn't actually switch the official name of the episode called Getting Off, which is probably a bad decision, but also hilarious. It's also the one with Mr. Bonzo in it. Okay, let's keep going.
So, Mac B episode 3. Putting down roots. Cullen is again struggling with Freddy. and experiencing a .jmj error.
Could that be a John Martin Jonah error?
Jonah Martin John?
Jonah Martin John.
Again, another hint to our three boys, Sergei Yushchenko into the machines. While Alice chats with Colin, who is struggling,
He's yelling at the computer.
He's yelling at the computer.
Struggling is to put it lightly.
Poor Colin. Alice suggests calling Central IT, and Colin voices pleasure at the idea, stating that he knows the system better than anyone, and as such, IT wouldn't even know where to start.
Basically, also Colin is really wary of giving voices and personalities to the computers.
Yeah, very much like a person who brought up a stray pet and wants to give it away. Don't attach yourself to it, sort of idea. Alice jokes around with him with the computer, and Colin just chastises her for it.
Yeah.
Tells her not to give it the personality. She shouldn't even be calling it Freddy. Eventually, it gets working, and our boy Norris starts reading the case. So Alice heads into the kitchen to make some coffee.
This one is about homicide, Kent CID repository from the Journal of Dr. Samuel Weber, issued by a grief counselor, found in a water-damaged briefcase covered in moldy roots.
Yes.
This is a fun one.
This,
in my opinion, but I'm a big fan of mycelium, so.
So this briefcase essentially contained a journal of a water-damaged phone, wallet, keys, medical files on Maddie Weber, who is deceased, and Gerald Andrews. The journal is dated as December 7th of 2009. 10:03 p.m. Dr. Weber is running from the authorities.
Yeah.
And
he had a panic attack.
Yeah, he had a panic attack.
He's in a garden now.
He's in a garden. He's having so much fun. As he enters the garden, he says that space seems to be distort in this area, in this garden. He lists the contents of his briefcase as files on the star-crossed couple. Monday morning rounds, 9 Weathers, original pens, prescription pads, valid Oyster card, 23 pounds and 22 cents, and €1 in cash. The journal had been written in and his phone. He talked about not having any food. He did not pack a lunch and needing to go somewhere dry. He knows that he scratches on his hands and face from pushing through these bushes of this thick garden.
Yeah. Speaking of the garden too, he's like, Maddie loved to garden, and he starts it with that. You don't really get who Maddie is for quite a while. Yeah. And so he's in this unnatural garden next to a bombed-out church, and he's like, Maddie left me forever, and I miss her, and she smelled like jasmine sometimes. Basically. And he's like, by the way, my skin is also growing roots, and I have to keep scraping them off. I might need a scalpel at some point. He has a stabbing thing in his abdomen, and he's tasting aniseed. And all these things are happening. Basically, he's slowly decomposing.
Yeah, like a shroom.
Like a shroom.
Like a dead tree with shroom going on.
And he's like, it's fine, because Maddie will be back with medicine. It's okay.
He does ponder about going home, but knows that the first place that would be the first place they're looking. He's on the run.
He has a bunch of places that he lists that he could go.
Yeah.
But he's like, the garden's cool, and plus I can't find a way out, and
I can't sleep, and I'm in pain.
And he's slowly becoming immobile too. And there's insects all over him.
Insects. He does hear what sounds like Maddie's voice.
Yeah.
While just journaling through everything in this garden. He writes about his slow transition as he slowly is becoming immobile. His parts, his body, and other stuff just falling or being removed away.
He plants his fingers at one point, he takes them out and plants them.
Yeah. He just.
And then quote that he said, "Nature is so wonderful." And yeah.
Fun. He tries to. He tries escaping to get medicine from a pharmacy, is unsuccessful at finding an exit. He notes that he smells jasmine again, so he thinks Maddie is nearby trying to help him. Within that process, this voice encourages him to stay in the garden.
He basically thinks Maddie is there.
Yes. Despite previously mentioning that she had moved out, that her things bring back terrible memories, gradually transitions into talking about his health in terms of what would be best for a plant rather than a human body. He seems increasingly happier with these life changes, and the journal sort of like ends with him being happy, appreciating the bright sun and the blue sky, even though something inside of him is terrified.
I think it's quite a beautiful case.
I
enjoyed this one.
Yes, this one is good.
This is my ideal way to go out, by the way.
That's fair, that's fair.
Okay, so Alice and Sam are talking, and Sam is like, how do I label this parasitic garden that whispers with the voice of the woman he clearly murdered and sort of turns you into a tree? Good question. Don't worry, the filing system is large enough to have something that will somewhat fit in the category.
Somewhat. Alice also like jokes, or Alice is like, "Hey Sam, you should call Central IT." Faking in fake ignorance to someone who comes to check on Freddy, because she wants to joke, she wants to play a prank on Colin, basically. She implies that she thinks Colin might be causing some issues, however.
Yeah.
Sam refuses to do it, not wanting to tense the office vibes as they were. Gwen comes in and asks Alice if she's working on the 27th. Alice starts bantering with her, trying to get information on what she will be doing in exchange for the answer. Gwen says that she's having dinner with some old friends, which Alice jokes that they will bathe in the blood of the poor and that they will be bathing in the blood of the poor and drinking champagne.
If you haven't heard Gwen's voice and you don't know much about British accents, she's very posh, and so Alice just mocks her the entire time for it, which fair enough.
Alice does answer that she will be working that day, joking that she was born here and will die here, which I hope isn't foreshadowing. Yes, little trivia about the third is that there did feature a guest writer, Grammy Petrick, a writer for Ain't Slayed Nobody. Don't know what that is, but cool.
He's written a few other things too. Believe it or not, it's time for taking notes, the fourth. Oh. This one's also really fun.
Yes, taking notes. I like this one a lot.
Okay, so we started this. Oh my goodness.
Speed running.
We started this out, and Sam is beatboxing to himself. I think that's really important to mention.
I really like Sam.
Sam is
not
a
that
good
I didn't
character.
like Jonathan Sims or any other characters, but I just really like Sam.
You like them all off the beat, like most of the characters. Yes. Whereas in the archives, you have to warm up to them.
Yes, well, and that also plays in with the whole thing of where Magnus Archives, they had the 200 episode plan, and they slowly, episode by episode, pulled and allows you to reel in with these characters and then kill half of them off.
Yeah. This is more of a collaborative.
Yes, more collaborative and more, again, workplace comedy. Boom, here's everything, here's the dynamic, this is what's happening. Which, I like both styles of everything. But then again, they couldn't just do the same thing over again. That would be a little repetitive and boring. So the more workplace comedy is really fun and really fitting for what they did here. So anyways.
Sam is beatboxing to himself. Mm-hmm. Alice gets a security notification and suspects Sam of trying to access restricted files under the names of Magnus and Protocol.
Yes.
And basically, the protocol is really high-level stuff. Like, they're not supposed to know what it is.
Yes. I don't think... I think Lena even says that she's not aware of what it is eventually down the road.
Yeah. They're not supposed to know about it. It's supposed to involve the Stark Wall, which is supposed to be...
Yes. Stark Wall Protection Services, which is some sort of, like, group that... I don't know if the right word would be, like, FBI or SWAT or some sort of unit of people.
Yeah, the OIR seized affiliation with them in 2000.
Yes.
So they were connected at one point.
And then they drift. Yeah, they split from it. As this is happening, Gwen approaches them as she does, causing Alice to drop the subject before she even gets there. Gwen starts to work on this computer, and this is the first time we hear Augustus's voice.
Which is very fitting for what happens there.
Yes. There was another theory. I need to find it because I need to remember what it is. But there was a little theory that is supported that every voice of the three main boys and the statements that they read corresponds to their archives character.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this one makes a lot of sense to have Augustus read it.
Mm-hmm. Also, really good voice that Augustus had. What's the guy's name again? I forgot. Tim Farron. Good voice. I like it. So, anyways, the case is a historical letter from a musician to his nephew. It starts with the author informing his nephew that if he is reading this, he is dead. He states that he will be leaving him his violin.
And to keep the words a secret of this.
Keep these details secret from this letter.
And basically he's like, have this violin in place of familial affection. And he says that. He writes it down. Mm-hmm. And so basically he's like, I was thinking of you because you stayed with me last summer and it was raining a lot here and it's also raining now and I'm kind of miserable. And he kind of gives a little bit of his life story concerning the artifact that he's leaving his nephew.
Yes. He says, he was a young, talented musician. He had talent that his tutor, Oliver Baldwin, credited himself for. The musician was summoned to the Royal Court Orchestra of the
Palatine.
Oliver traveled with the musician in the carriage, perhaps hoping to gain something from his student's success. During the time, Oliver became increasingly unpleasant, maniac gleam in his eyes was
and it
accompanied
seemed
by
as he was listening to faraway music, which if you've listened to the archives again, sounds...
Musician was doing a finger exercise. Warming up, Oliver was taken over by what seemed like a flash of mania, causing him to speak incoherently, flail wildly before throwing himself onto the carriage.
Yeah.
After the driver brought the carriage to a halt, the body was inspected. It was clear that
his skull is like a melon.
Like a melon.
And the coachman he knows how much this guy hates the tutor anyways, and so he's like, it was you, and he leaves.
Yeah,
he leaves, and this guy...
what was it? After the driver acted rashly, some kind of altercation occurred, after which the musician wandered alone into the...
Yeah, he comes across a fire with an English gentleman sitting there who offers him food. Yes. He has a bag of trinkets with him, which is kind of creepy. And he pulls out an otherworldly violin, so it's like otherworldly in the way that it's very, very beautiful.
Yes. Fortune does seem to have forsaken you. Indeed, I would suggest a stroke of luck is much in order, is what this guy says as he pulls out this violin.
Yeah, this violin.
Other weird items, knives, chipped porcelain, fine jewelry, small ivory pieces, and gambler's dice, which maybe could be
that could be something later.
And yes, the musician is given a violin and bow of extraordinary quality. When he holds the instrument, he cuts himself on the string immediately. Paying no mind of the musician's cry, the man directs him to a path, which he tells him would lead him to a destination in a few hours.
I really like this statement because I played violin for quite a few years, and it does cut your fingers.
Really?
Quite a bit, yeah. You have to build up a callus.
And in a daze, the musician leaves and reaches Mannheim School in Baden-Württemberg,
which is a very important place in TMA.
It is. I do not recall this.
It's a location of the Von Closen estate in the nearby mausoleum.
Yes.
Which will pop up.
Yes.
I think it's the one statement where the guy it's another historical letter where he stayed at the house and then there was the graveyard nearby. Yeah,
yes, I believe it's that one.
But anyways, that's an important thing.
Anyways, he auditions before various judges, oddly enough, beginning unsteady and lackluster, before feelings of fear are just flooded onto him. After playing a jet to call, I don't know what that is.
It's a type of yeah. Basically, it's supposed to be impressive.
After playing a jet to call the judge's attention, he becomes aware of the utmost layering of his left ring finger hanging off due to the cutting, sawing his own fingers off. Kind of.
His neck is cut too.
Yes, he begins playing.
But he's playing really well.
He's playing through very well, though the pain and the blood begin pooling onto the violin from his body, essentially. The performers like see this, and they also like start bleeding, I think.
No, I think it's just him.
Oh, it's just his bloody performance. Yeah.
There's a bloody audience later.
Yes.
But basically, he's playing all this stuff. Everyone thinks he's really good. It's just the violin eating his blood.
Mm-hmm. Later in his life, he does his own time as a tutor, providing musical education to the poor, using some of these easily forgotten people to feed his violin. He declares feeding the violin to be of singular importance. Only once did he play without feeding it, causing his audience to devolve into a murderous frenzy. Their expressions were similar to that of Oliver just before his death.
It says that it was an Austrian gentry, and he had the same look as Bardwell, and he sucked the eyes from his son's skull. So you can picture that.
And again, it is very similar to Grifter's Bones, episode 942 of Archives, and the letter ends with the musician musing as to whether his nephew will be able to destroy the violin, or should he use it in a similar way that he has himself. He directs his nephew to feed it, and he gave it all that he had and more. Yeah,
and basically he goes, the blood doesn't need to be your own. He had thought of burning it or dismantling it himself, and he just didn't do it.
Maybe it could have worked. After this case finishes, Sam asks why something from the 18th century had been picked up by Freddy, which is followed by bickering, just more bickering between Alice and Glenn, whether it should be classified at all. Alice and Sam eventually head off after completing their work. Gwen, who still has much catching up to do, stays behind. After they leave, she receives an email with a video attached in it of a person begging a young Lena not to do this, saying that they could disappear again.
Their name is supposed to be Klaus, too.
Klaus? I think it's Klaus.
I think that might be. Anyways.
Yeah, referred to as Klaus.
Yeah, so younger Lena did something.
Younger Lena did
And then,
something.
in the wise words of Alice summarizing the case, dear Grandpa Augustus does always tell such lovely stories.
Personal screening. I like this one a lot. Again, I listening to more Magnus archives, like this one and the one about the director that has the giant spider. I kind of like the film ones. Sam is in Lena's office talking about to talk to her about Colin.
This is filmed on landline.
Yes, the landline this time.
The landline is coming for them.
I love that landline.
Okay.
He's getting worried about Colin. He seems to be having a breakdown.
Yeah, he refuses to go near cameras, and he has like multiple locks on his office that he's been adding over time.
Yes. He's also been unplugging random wires, adding more locks to his office door, and avoiding every camera, and they know why they are.
She's like crawling around on the floor to go around them.
Sam believes Colin's stress is overwhelming him and that he needs professional help. Lena just thanks Sam for bringing this to her attention, but she assures him that if Colin would need help, he can always reach out to Central IT.
Yeah, basically it will resolve itself. She doesn't really want Sam to be in there either.
No.
She tells him to come back only if he has an appointment.
Sam returns to his desk, annoyed at this. Alice teases him for being late, much to his dismay. He briefly talks to her about his frustrations with Lena. He notices more paperwork on his desk, which Alice states is for his response department 1-to-1. Sam is seemingly surprised by how much of it there is. Alice suggests he disposes of it.
Basically, she thinks that the system prints out old paperwork, and Sam starts filling it out anyways.
Yeah, he
like thick.
Yeah, like thick stacks. And the response department probably doesn't even exist anymore, something Alice also adds.
Then Chester's voice comes and says, "Welcome to my twisted mind." It's a horror movie review blog.
Yes.
And lots of the posts have been deleted.
Yes, a series of blog posts from https://www.tomsterrors.blogsphere.org. The first post discusses a blog's role as a place to discuss horror films. The second post implies that Tom, the presumed name and owner of the blog, made it when he was 14 and completely forgot about it. Coming back to it years later as an adult, he decides to repurpose it as a place to discuss obscure and hidden horror media. A number of film and game reviews followed the post. Fire in the Sky, Sweet Home, The Puppet Master 4. The contents of all 3 posts have been deleted. The next post thanks everybody who has been leaving him comments and recommendations. One such recommendation is for a movie called Voyeur.
And it needs to be seen to be believed.
It needs to be seen
the scariest movie I have ever seen.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, I have to find it, but there's no resources online at all.
Then a user named Cinephobia 12220 shares a link for what appears to be an official website for Voyeur. And it doesn't appear to have been updated in a long time, but is apparently running a contest for a private screening of Voyeur and a Q&A with the film's director. Tom expects that this contest has already concluded, but decides to enter anyway.
He wins, and he gets an envelope, and he's like, I didn't put my address in. It must be the IP number, because that's how it works.
Yeah, because that's how that works. Everyone can just search up your IP number.
Yeah, obviously. Especially in a place as densely packed as where he probably lives.
And he goes to this private screening that is being held at that Saturday at the cinema Tom used to go to with his father to watch horror films, which he thought wasn't open anymore.
It looks really beat up on the outside.
Really beat up.
But he goes inside and it's really nice.
It is really nice.
And he's forced to eat popcorn.
Forced to eat popcorn. Tom explains years of consuming various horror media has desensitized him to the point that even the borderline should be illegal stuff can barely get a reaction out of him. Tom then announces that that the invitation said that the live blogging and screening is allowed, and he's found a decent text-to-speech app that will be allowing him to speak to his readers in real time. Tom begins to live blog outside of the cinema, which looks abandoned except for a marquee reading, Voyeur fan screening sold out. Once inside the cinema, Tom is surprised at how good it looks. He talks to the man at the ticket booth who tells him that the private screening is the only screening that night and insists Tom take free concessions.
He's forced to eat popcorn.
Forced to eat popcorn.
Yeah.
Tom tries to ask about the cinema's derelict exterior, but the worker only answers, "It's what's on the inside that matters." Tom goes to pick up his concessions and is surprised to see the same worker there, feeling somewhat guilt that the man is quite old, though he seemed happy enough when he goes into the theater. Tom sees that the man is ushering as well. Tom takes a seat in the theater and waits alone in the darkness. He finishes his popcorn before the film even starts. I feel called out there.
But the thing too is it's a blank screen for a really long time.
Yes.
The lights dim and he just is like, I'm ready to watch the movie.
Ready to watch it. When the screen eventually does come on, the screen shows what looks like a flashback scene recorded on a camcorder. Tom recognizes the scene from his own past, saying that it's something his mother wanted to record for his brothers after the incident.
It's a medical room.
Yes.
Too.
Tom then sees in the corner of the screen that he does not recognize and reacts with horror before the live blog cuts out. Tom posts his review of Voyeur. Voyeur needs to be seen to be believed. The scariest movie I have ever seen.
Ooh.
Spooky. So after that, Alice is just in the middle of a phone conversation with her brother.
Again.
When she hangs up and is startled by Gwen, who is apparently waiting for her to finish up her conversation. Gwen asks Alice if Alice remembers their IT manager before Colin. Alice thinks she means the person named Amelia, but Gwen tells her that she means the person before that.
The German guy.
A German man with a number of tattoos.
Yeah, and that's where that one ends. I don't think there's really much to say about these early ones because there's so much being set up.
Lots of stuff just being set up.
It's going to be fun to go back and listen to these once the whole series is finished.
Yes. This episode also did have an alternate title called A Director's Cut. And this episode also featured a guest writer, Jamie Pentronis, writer for The Cellar Letters.
Don't mind the skip, we're wearing different clothes. But anyways, going into Protocol episode number 6. We're professionals here at Analyzing Archivists. Keep going.
We don't have time.
We don't have time. So, Sam is working at his desk in the pre-case
computer turns on, basically, as it do in the OIR. And he's like drifting off to sleep, and bro is tired. He and Alice are talking about his, him being tired. Alice advises him not to have a fourth cup of coffee, but instead invest in some blackout curtains.
She tries to sell her curtains later, like it's implied a few episodes later. It's like, Celia,
buy my curtains. She tells him that a new hire is coming in. Since their job has a high turnover rate, Lena hires several replacements whenever an established worker leaves, just so they can thin out the herd, sort of shenanigan. And then Gwen shows up. She's less than enthusiastic about the new hire, complaining that it takes a lot of time to train someone new, and blah 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 blah.
And she has work to do.
She's work to do.
She's work to do.
They work in silence until Sam's computer starts playing an incident report, which this time is interesting. It's a 999 call, which American is, in American terms, it's the 911. So, a 999 call from a strange man identified as Needles in the transcripts, who cannot decide which emergency service he wants to contact, and is with a man who's in serious pain and who shows little empathy to.
You have to forgive him. He's full of needles at the moment, you see.
Fun stuff. When the man is told that the 999 operator does not know the location, he decides to hang up on them and call them back when he has decided.
So basically, to paint a picture, Needles is, as you imagine, covered in needles, and there's this guy on the ground, and Needles is like, I don't really know what to do about the guy over there. I could help him, but I kind of don't want to.
Later, though, he does call again, but is connected to a different operator. Caller jovially tells the police that a man has tried to mug him, and that he had a serious injury by a man by cuddling him, as he puts it. As apparently he has needles protruding from every part of his body.
He made an extra shirt to get the face and the eyes.
Extra shirt to get the face.
This is a very descriptive character.
Very descriptive character. Yes, that is.
He reminds me a lot of Michael Distortion.
Yeah, like Protocol and Michael Distortion.
Completely, I think, different, fear, but same vibe.
Same vibe of yeah, sort of shenanigans. Anyways, he basically is like, oh, my neighborhood's no longer safe with people like him around, and that wounding people makes him feel good is basically what he's saying. He likes needle, he likes poking, he likes cuddling with needles. When the operator tries to put him on hold, the man threatens to cuddle the mugger again and kill him. The man asks the operator if they're afraid of him, which he doesn't seem to be. He just he gives a non-answer. This enrages the man, and he then manages to trick the operator into indicating what police station he's in.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a quote in here. This is Needles talking to the operator when the operator is not very scared, and Needles goes, "This isn't some proxy blood test, some little pinprick. This is hundreds, thousands of razor sharp points pushing into your flesh. We're talking about the embrace of an iron maiden with excruciating agony born from 1,000 tiny hearts." And the police officer is like, "You're not well."
So yeah, this enrages the man, tricks the operator into indicating what police station he's at, and then he's delighted by the small amount of fear that is produced from the operator from doing that. He's ecstatic. And then as the operator is about to end the call, the man goes to stab the mugger to death as promised, and then tells the operator he'll be seeing him soon.
Yeah, because the operator's holding us, Needles didn't want it to transfer to higher order, and the guy's like, "I'm transferring you anyways," and Needles is like, "Time to go."
Bye-bye. So yeah, that happens. Needles.
And it's over.
But it keeps
going.
It does keep going. So Sam is surprised at how abruptly that case ends. Alice informs him that it's rare to receive closure from some of the cases involving emergency service calls, which makes sense, and that when they have a follow-up, it's often because something strange comes from the aftermath of the case. And this is when Lena enters and announces their new hiree, Celia Ripley.
Oh boy.
Lena informs her of some steps that they need to take when she's finished getting acquainted, and then Lena just leaves. After briefly introducing themselves, they discuss Celia's interview, which she notes was very strange, much like Sam's. Alice informs them that Lisa recently changed her style of interviewing.
This is on purpose to get people who actually want to stay.
Yeah, what's the biggest thing? What's the biggest thing you fear? Sort of questions. She also warned Celia that some of the cases might be a little disturbing. Celia assures her that, she'd be fine, noting that in recent times she hasn't been easily scared. Then she returns to Lena to finish her paperwork. And Sam thinks Celia is quite nice.
Alice is like, don't get attached.
No, that's Gwen.
No, Gwen's like, don't get
Yeah. Gwen reminds him not to get too attached because of the turnover rate. And that's this episode. Quick side note.
Okay.
So apparently this episode was supposed to be titled New Friends, not Introductions. Either works, which we'll see. Do we want to talk about Celia now, or
the statement keeps going.
What else
I'm
happens?
seeing. Okay, so we have Sam, Gwen, and Alice, and then it's Alice, Celia, Sam. Celia leaves, and then Alice is like, you have a thing for her, which is important. It comes back later. And it just keeps going. Basically,
Bad Wiki, you didn't give us everything.
Basically, Sam also found Alice's secret biscuits that
Wait, what?
Alice has been hiding biscuits and Sam found them.
Oh,
It's
yes, that's so true.
Okay.
Anyways.
More,
This is an office drama.
Maybe the real office drama was the one we made along the way.
Maybe. Mag, episode 7, Give and Take. So Alice is showing Celia how to submit a case, much like how she did with Sam.
Celia mentions how straightforward it is.
Yeah. Celia is, surprised about how calm Celia is about the whole matter, seeing as the case they were reviewing was about an individual whose skin turned into butterflies.
Celia's like, I can't say butterflies really scare me. She assumed that some of the cases would be unsettling, and that's why, they're being assessed in the first place. Celia asks about Freddy, and Freddy's ability to read out certain cases and whether the cases have anything in common. She then asks Freddy if Freddy has a search function, to which Alice replies there is not a search bar, and as such, she would have sifted through the cases manually. Alice also mentions that every time a spoken statement comes on, they just leave and go get coffee. Other than Sam's really unique.
Sam's the only one that listens to the spoken ones.
So Celia's like, okay.
And then after they continue talking, our boy Chester starts reading a case. This one's interesting and long. I did remember this one. So this is an email from a Diane Margolis, who believes that she's been a victim of neglect by her employers at Hilltop Center branch of Oxford's People's Trust. She states that she will not be working, and her notice period.
She's resigning, and she's like, "You better pay me.
Better pay me. I'm leaving. Screw you guys." And she provides a whole account of the events, which is this. So Dana took over from Derek Chambers, the former manager, on the August 17th of 2015. Her line manager was one Mr. C. Clayton.
I love Mr. C. Clayton.
Mr. C. I do not remember Mr. C. Clayton.
It's okay. He's not ever like directly in it, but he does a lot of really funny things. I'll mention them as we go past.
Okay.
Because he's just off doing these insane things every once in a while this person who is back at here actually working is freaking out over what's happening.
Alrighty. On November 13th of 2015, she received a walk-in application from an individual seeking a volunteering position she had advertised. Diane does not remember the name of the individual and was unable to find the name in relevant paperwork or various emails. The volunteer struggled with all the work related to the role, but was, quote, punctual, hardworking, and extremely positive disposition.
And Mr. C. Clayton says about this that she should chill and that it was all good. Anyways, so basically this guy, the employee that she has, the volunteer, sucks at doing what he's doing. And then he goes, I have a friend who also wants to do this, and she's like, oh no. But the holidays are approaching, so they need extra hands, basically.
Yes.
he donates at one point a large false plant, somewhat disconcertingly ceramic pot modeled of a shouting human face.
And he told Diane that he was having a good time since it was all for a good cause.
And this comes back again and again and again.
Yeah. The volunteer had, and like you said, the volunteer had another friend who was interested in volunteering, and Diane was reluctant.
And Clayton is not responding to anything anymore.
Diane also did not remember the name of the second volunteer, who suffered with the same issues as the first and donated a large bearskin rug. At some point, she had given both volunteers a formal warning to stop laughing so much whilst on the main floor, but they insisted it's all for a good cause.
She also emailed Clayton about their policy regarding real fur items, but he was on a personal development sabbatical and unreachable, and so she puts the bear rug in a back room because the teeth are so horrifying.
That's good. So the second volunteer told Diane that she also that she had other friends who wished to volunteer. Diane took them on due to still being understaffed. The next two volunteers donated a large chandelier of dark glass and an oversized gramophone with a collection of records that Diane believed played religious plain-song. When Diane explained the donations were not necessary, they insisted, claiming it was all for a good cause.
Okay, and during this time,
Mr.
C. Clayton has not yet returned from his sabbatical, which I had then learned was full pay in the Selegies?
Seychelles?
Seychelles. I'm sure he had a lovely time.
He had a lovely time in his sabbatical. And then on November 30th, Diane introduced 4 more volunteers by the previous volunteers. These new volunteers had seemingly already been offered the position by others. Diane again reluctantly took them in to fill volunteer slots. These new volunteers donated a crudely carved rocking horse, a grandfather clock that leaked some sort of dark oil, a heavily vandalized set of Encyclopedia Britannica.
I know that word.
I don't know, what is it?
It's like the essence of Britain boiled down into a woman that rides a chariot. Keep going.
Alrighty, and an extensive collection of abstract canvas artworks. Respectively, of course.
None of them are fit for sale, but her instructions to remove them were disregarded. And she's like, I'm losing control of these people. It gets worse.
Speaking of worse, on December 1st, Diane arrived to find that some of the new volunteers had already opened the shop without having been provided keys. She could not find the volunteers behind the new donations of 2 large, soiled, silverline?
Dresses, yes.
Yeah, Sauerline dresses, a chasse lounge with cushions filled with some sort of like sand, a taxidermied vulture, a rusty antique printing press, and a collection of old medical equipment that had seemingly been recently used.
This is just a selection. There's a ton more
There's
stuff.
a lot more stuff that it lists. There were many more other donations that Diane was unable to log. After a short confrontation with the original volunteer, Diane tried to leave but could not, as the volunteers were bringing in more items. Other items included a leather kite, oddly curved brass telescope, a wheelbarrow full of shifting fossils, an armload of swords, lengths of rope, a tin bathtub filled with moldy food, a stack of old dental records, a brace of half-butchered pheasants, jars of what appeared to be pickled hands.
And during this whole time, they're all laughing to each other, and they're saying it's all for a good cause.
All for a good cause.
It's a very stranger-oriented.
For the greater good, if you people get that reference. A broken picnic basket, blood-stained china, and imperial coins. While
Gin diving suit filled with sawdust.
diving suit sawdust. And while they brought in these items, the volunteers would again be calling out, laughing to each other, "It's all for the greater good."
It's all for a good
It's
cause.
all for a good cause. Eventually, Diane was crushed to the point where she could not move, and that when gunshots started and the building started to go up in flames, Diane was unable to make it to the exit, where she was confronted by a heavyset man in black clothing and a gun. Diane was asked to identify the security firm that took this action and confirmed she does not know who hired them, but knows that it was not the Oxford People's Trust. The firm expressed that the fire should be treated as an accident and that there should be no further investigation by the trust.
Unless you send Mr. C. Clayton, of course. I rather think he deserves to be fully debriefed by them. I feel like it's important to mention we've also come across another mysterious organization within this, and I'm
That's
wondering
true.
if they have anything to do with it.
Are you just talking about the People's Trust?
No, the ones who were working with
The OIAR?
Yeah, like
Oh,
the government organization.
That's interesting. Interesting theory.
I would think they might be connected,
True.
but it ends there.
No, it ends there. In the
But don't
post
worry,
case,
it keeps going.
it does keep going. Following the case, Celia is shaken, and upon Alice's inquiring, Celia reveals that she recognizes Chester's voice. She asks Alice, that like, oh, is that she asks Alice if like, oh, who recorded the voice of Chester? Alice assumes it might just be a radio star or something like that. Celia doesn't seem all too convinced by that. Celia drops the subject matter though, and then we cut to Sam's phone turns on and starts recording an interaction between him and Colin. He asks Colin about a weird internal email he received from John, and Colin states that there is no one in the department called John. Colin scoffs at Sam's basically getting worked up over an email, and alludes to knowing about the real stuff. When Sam pulls out his phone to show the email address, Colin gets very angry, pointing at his no external electronics, sighs, tries to grab the phone from him, and in the ensuing scuffle causes the phone to drop on the floor and break, which stops the recording. Then we cut into, I believe this happened from a computer.
It's a landline again.
Landline, that's right.
Most of the things in Lena's office are landlines.
That's interesting, actually. Interesting fact.
Mysterious.
So Gwen enters Lena's office, cutting off Lena's phone call. When Gwen shows Lena the video that she received a couple episodes ago, she received via email, and this time was able to hear that Lena attempts to shoot Klaus, which we also get a little voice cameo by Paul Schmidt. Little guest voice cameo for Klaus. But he's able to get away. Following this, Gwen reveals that, according to her source, whoever wanted Lena to kill Klaus believes him to be dead. Using this as blackmail, Gwen tells Lena that she wants in. Lena says that she's been needing someone to step up to the real work for quite some time, and the episode ends with Lena appointing Gwen as the new externals liaison. Saying that Gwen will now have a chance to earn the authority and answers she's looking for.
And that's it.
That's it. Quite a bit to talk about this one, actually. So, the Hilltop branch is likely located on Hilltop Road, which, Magnus Archives viewers, very important to the Magnus Archives, heavily involved in the conclusion of this season. And the unknown security firm that is burned down in the building is likely what we learn back in Mag number 4, Starkwall
I
Security.
didn't read the notes for this one.
Really?
No.
That didn't connect for you?
No, I connected it in my
Oh.
head because I'm so cool and I have such a big brain.
Agreed. Which, yeah, Starkwall Security, which is previously mentioned in Mag number 4. John, the mysterious email he gets from, that Sam gets, could be John from Magnus Archives? We don't know. Mag Protocol number 8, running on empty. This one just starts off with the case, an essay from a university submitted by a student, Terrence Stevens, on how prolonged exposure to liminal spaces can lead to psychological stress.
I love
I
this
wonder what that sounds like. I forget the name of the spacecraft in Archives.
Oh my goodness. I love this statement.
This one is really good.
talking about like liminal spaces and architecture.
That's-
This one is a good one.
Yes.
Was this written?
This was written by our boy Alex. Yeah, no, I was
Oh,
Alex.
okay. I thought you were gonna finish out the rest of his name.
No.
I was like, yeah, this is a good one. in my opinion.
So, again, yeah, this is a university essay on, I already just said that. So, in it, he studies the Fortin Service Station, the architecture of which combines liminally and brutalism in fashion referred to as absence despite presence, or hungry architecture.
Architectural hunger.
Architectural.
A space that resents its own transitional nature can be dangerous, and I have a unique personal insight into this phenomenon.
He elaborates on the history of the foreign services and about the attached Panini Tower restaurant, which has now been abandoned.
Yeah, you should put a photo of it in when you do editing, because it looks weird.
Okay, it's that, is it?
Yeah.
So that was like a restaurant? That's like a real thing, I assume.
It's a gas station.
Oh, well, it said restaurant.
Yeah, so it's like, so you basically, you know how gas stations are sometimes truck stops?
Yeah.
It was a glorified truck stop that people were supposed to like stay at. It has a restaurant, 700 seats ish, and all this stuff, and people just didn't use it. So it became abandoned over time. And basically, this statement is talking about the top is locked off, like the restaurant is locked off. They still have to clean the bottom. What happened to the restaurant?
Okay.
And this guy is an architecture student. He's a mature architecture student, so he's 51 years old.
Okay.
He has a night job here, and that's kind of where this one. That's the context you need for it.
Okay, cool. So he proceeds with a personal anecdote of when he became an employee at the Foreign Services, despite being overqualified due to a messy breakup that cost him most of his friendships. Forgot about that part. Over his time working there alone, he eventually began to realize that there were fewer and fewer people visiting, until eventually that there was nobody at all. Then he stepped outside to check the car parking lot and found that there were no cars there, that the location was surrounded by a strange fog that cast everything in strips of mute color, which he likens to a time-lapse video of traffic. In retrospect, he references that he was most likely hallucinating due to prolonged isolation. He then hurried back inside to avoid looking at the colors any longer and found that there was a woman standing next to the disused elevator. The woman was exceptionally thin and dressed like a stewardess.
She was tall, young, thin, almost to the point of malnourishment, dressed similarly to a stewardess with tightly fitting blue waistcoat buttoned over a sensible-looking gray skirt. She was beaming, holding open the door to the left and inviting me inside. There's a small brass badge on her waistcoat, but instead of a name it simply read, "You are here."
That's when the colors begin to link inside and Terrence ran into the elevator to escape. The elevator took him up to the restaurant level, which he notes should be disabled from accessing. The woman gave him some stifling greetings and then left as the doors opened. He found the restaurant not as it should be, but now fully furnished and packed with people. As he investigated, he realized that the people were not exactly saying anything and were just making a muffled sound similar. Like a muffling. I don't know.
It's like Simish.
Simlish, yeah.
They have repeating elements to them. They're all like kind of wearing the same clothing.
Yes, and the windows just let out into a featureless black void. The murmuring then abruptly stops, and a chef comes around to him and tells him to stay a while, which every other person in the restaurant begins to tell him to do that also.
They're just like chanting.
The people then began biting into his body. As the elevator then disappeared, he did the only thing he could to escape by jumping out the window into the featureless void. He was later found by paramedics in the parking lot of Foreign Services with several injuries, including a bitten-off finger. He now chalks the experience up to stress-induced psychosis episode caused by prolonged exposure to the hungry architecture. So yeah, a very good listen, a very good just case for this one.
He says he'd like his findings to do further study and would like another student to take the work. I think it's really sad that because it's a relatively like well-written essay format, he got a failing grade on it.
He did?
I think that's just cruel. I would have passed him. I really like, especially when the beginning starts out when it's more of a cohesive, pretty well written.
Pretty well written. that's where that case ends. And then CCTV turns on in the break room as Gwen walks in attempting to pour herself some tea before confronting Alice about the fact that she did not refill the kettle after using it. Alice replies dismissively, frustrating Gwen even further. She notes that Gwen seems to be stressed and makes a sarcastic remark about her recent promotion. Alice is not even sure what an external liaison is supposed to mean, and seemingly neither does Gwen.
She assumes she's going to be managing a bunch of contractors.
Yes.
Again, Starkwall.
Season 2. Though she does not explain what they are actually meant to do, all she says is that she will soon be receiving a more comprehensive overview.
Also, Colin's on mental health leave.
Yes.
For
yes.
smashing Sam's phone.
Yes. Alice talks about that a little. How between Teddy leaving, the hiring of Sam, and Celia, and then Lena's decision to put Colin on mental health leave, Gwen apparently has not heard about the last one, and Alice explains that he broke down and smashed Sam's phone. She says that she feels like something's going on. Gwen comments on their caseload being what's going on, and asks where Sam and Celia are. Alice tells her that they're finished their caseloads and left early.
And then we get to learn about where they went. Which is fun. We get to go spend time with Jerry.
So a phone, I forget whose phone turns on.
It's a dial-up.
It's a dial-up, something. But anyways, Sam and Celia visit our boy Jerry Key and Gertrude Robinson.
And he is extremely happy. Jerry is.
He is a very...
He has homemade sourdough.
He's painting. Celia and Sam visit Jerry and Gertrude Robinson at their apartment, and their conversation is heard through a phone. During a conversation...
Jerry calls Gertrude Gigi.
Yes! Gigi! So during the conversation, Celia asks Jerry about a painting that was displayed in the apartment called Cadman Epiphany, and is revealed that Jerry painted it, and has several more paintings out back, and he offers it to Celia, saying that she would be doing them a favor by getting it out of the house. Sam then begins asking questions about Jerry's time as a member of the Magnus Institute's Gifted Kids program, to which Gertrude claims that Jerry will not be much help as he does not remember much of his time there. After that chain of questioning, Gertrude hurries Sam and Celia out of the house.
It's also implied that Sam was also part of this program.
And then I think it was also implied earlier that Alice is also a part of that.
Ooh, spooky.
Is it spooky?
And then
But didn't they also arrive there at like 6 in the morning?
Yeah, they were like, work night shift, sorry.
Yeah, but then after leaving the house, Sam and Celia have a brief conversation about how that was a dead end in Sam's research for answers about the Magnus Institute, and Celia offers to keep an eye out for various information about it as long as Sam keeps eye out about information about weird physics stuff.
Time travel, other dimensions, teleportation, all that good stuff.
Yes, as Freddy does not do searches.
And Celia says it's research for...
her friend's podcast, her friend Georgie's podcast.
And then after that, they talk mostly about how to get the painting on the tube.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
That's basically it. Holy balls. So, let's start with as it goes through here. So Georgie in this universe, this protocol universe, is the same Georgie Barker who does What the Ghost in the Magnus Archives, a podcast regarding paranormal happenings. That went on to become a prominent character she was in later seasons of Archives. She is mentioned later in Mag Protocol 18, but we'll get to that in part 2 of Protocol Bash. Jerry Key and Gertrude Robinson were also big players in the Magnus Archives. Both worked together, but they weren't related, as they kind of are maybe related in this universe, who knows. However, they are both, as you guys would know, I'll get out of here, that they both die. Jerry died in 2017, and then his page of the what is it called? The catalog of the trapped dead was burned by John, and then Gertrude was shot to death by John Magnus, and then her skin was used during the unknowing. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. Yeah, again, we also learned that Sam is learning more into the Magnus Institute, which seems to be in this universe some sort of gifted children program. That burned down in Manchester. But yeah, in the 80s, 90s, 80s. I think the 80s in this universe. But yeah, Sam was somewhat a part of it. Alice, maybe we get hints towards that, and a Jerry as well.
Okay, next one.
Next one.
We can go fast through this one because I don't like it.
Oh, okay. Mag Protocol number 9. I'll roll with it. This one was written by Johnny Sims and Alexander J. Newell. But anyways, in the pre-case, Sam is working with more onboarding paperwork, as he calls it, when Celia comments on his workload. She expresses confusion at this, and despite both being new hires, she has not received any. Sam explains that this is a result of him chalking that response 1-to-1 box in the very beginning, and that the now defunct response department keeps giving him various weird paperwork.
It is weird paperwork. I'll read out a little bit of it.
Okay.
Please list your earliest 4 negative memories associated with school or an equivalent childhood educational institution, then rate each from 0 to 7, with 0 being neutral and 7 being traumatic. Please list every dead creature you've seen in the last 3 months. How many blood transfusions have you had within the last 10 years?
So yeah, very weird stuff. Very weird paperwork stuff from this, again, apparently defunct response department, the 1-to-1 whatever. He remarks that some of the questions are weird and purposeless, and the two read through a few of them. Afterwards, Celia admits that she cannot find any more information on the Magnus Institute. Sam thanks her for various help, and that he may have to give up on the search as soon as Alice suggested. Then, a few seconds later, Celia leaves for coffee, and Chester begins reading out a statement prompted to Sam's surprise, as usual.
For artifact CD-137.
Yes, a confidential statement in research assessment for artifact CD-317
Guess where this artifact is?
at the Magnus Institute.
Manchester.
The assessment rates the artifact, quote, viability as subject, unquote, none, and viability as agent, low, and viability as catalyst, medium. It recommends a referral to catalyst for enrichment applicability assessment.
If that doesn't make your skin crawl, I don't know what does.
Oh, words. So this statement is given by an unknown man donating a pair of cursed dice to the Institute, which is searching for supernaturally active items. He suggests that the dice to be put away very carefully, making sure not to accidentally drop or roll them, and insinuates that they should never be used as they are due for serious bad luck.
He talks about friend Gary, who really wanted him to play D&D with him, and so he breaks up with his partner, and then he's like, okay, I'll play D&D with you. So Gary, they hold a D&D session except no one else is there. It's just him and Gary is like, have these dice.
So he starts to, Gary is also wearing like torn clothes.
Yeah,
he walks with a limp. He looks like he's mugged.
Looks like he might have a blood stain on the wall.
Weird stuff. So yeah, again, no one else is there. Gary starts to discuss the game and says that he assumes that with the statement giver has no dice, offers him the dice. The statement giver is surprised that they are just a normal pair of D6s, off-white with black dots. So yeah, just a normal pair of 2d6s. As soon as the statement giver picks them up, somehow knows that like he owns them in a sense. And immediately afterwards, Gary claims that another group member called and said that they couldn't make it, so the game is canceled. The statement giver then takes a taxi home with the dice. Over the course of the year, the statement giver experiments with rolling the dice, and he quickly notices that they make things happen. With higher rolls resulting in good events and lower rolls resulting in bad events. Very low rolls can result in physical injuries, severe enough to leave you with visible scars.
He took track of it too, and he discovered it wasn't random.
Oh, they're just saying that the library closes in 20 minutes.
Okay, go.
Basically.
The rolls have a pattern to them.
Yes.
And he starts using this to his advantage, where
He'll do things in a sense that he will purposely make it so this pattern falls into his own luck. rolling for when something is rolled that will be good, he will make that happen upon himself, but then a magical, some stranger, he will roll with the bad, and that will happen to them, sort of
He's
stuff.
just going to strangers and having them roll the dice, and
Yes.
then he gets really upset when good things happen to them, because it does every once in a while.
Again, dice random. Then, one random day, he encounters Gary in the coffee shop near his flat. Gary appeared to have returned to a more normal life, or at least not an obviously miserable one. He approaches Gary, thanks him for the dice, and offered Gary a chance to roll the dice as payback. Gary seemed like he clearly wanted to leave and not roll the dice, but he rolled them regardless, and he rolled snake eyes. And it was the first time the statement giver had ever seen that occurred in 1,000 rolls.
And Gary promptly gets ran over by a truck.
Yes.
And it's described pretty gruesomely in the statement.
After a brief moment of silence, a truck barrels into the coffee shop, killing Gary gruesomely while injuring no one else. The driver had been asleep at the wheel, and the statement giver staggers away covered in blood. He vomits and decides to immediately give up the dice. He ends by saying that he never wanted to see them again, especially knowing that what they do to people who had given them away, and he suddenly changes his mind and says he'll roll them one more time. The statement ends with a note that there was an interruption at this point, and the statement giver was declared dead by paramedics at the scene.
So we can kind of guess what happened.
Kind of guess. So, anyways, that's where the statement ends. The case ends, and Gwen is assigned on her first real mission, as Lena describes it. She is tasked to delivering a letter and then monitoring the reactions of a Nigel Dickerson, a retired television star who is known for shows such as Saturdays on 6, Mr. Bonzo, and The Prank Tank. Teddy, and then we cut to Alice and Teddy having a conversation at the pub regarding Teddy's employment issues and the new OIAR employees. Teddy teases Alice about her lingering feelings for Sam before leaving, and he gets a notice of a new employment opportunity. Sam arrives, and Teddy offers him his pint before Sam asks Alice to join him in Manchester to investigate the ruins of the Magnus Institute. That is where this statement ends. And again, back in Mag Protocol episode number 4, there was a mention of dice, so that could very well be this. And then this episode's alternate title was supposed to be Roll With It. And then it's changed with Rolling With It. Don't know why.
Bad you, Rusty Quill.
Bad you, Rusty
Okay.
Quill. To end this part 1 of Protocol Bash, Mag episode 10, Saturday night. So, this again starts with a case. Nigel Dickerson, the former host of Saturday Night 6 and the creator of Mr. Bonzo, is being interviewed on TV by a woman named Geraldine Hardy. It has been 25 years since Mr. Bonzo's original concept, and Nigel discusses the origins of his creation. He explains that it originally started as a joke when he was approached by Channel 6 to host a Saturday night variety show Nigel Dickerson presents on Saturday at 6.
Yeah, okay. So, Nigel Dickerson, this cunning fellow, goes, we have a bunch of politicians coming on. Politicians don't know anything about children, especially not children's shows. We'll make up a fictional children's show character and have them come on the show. Long story short, Mr. Bonzo becomes a hit.
Yes.
And basically, Mr. Bonzo shows up in all these shows. He becomes really popular. There's merchandise. There's a theme park. All this stuff is going on. And basically...
He also doesn't remember who came up with the name.
Yeah, he doesn't. Basically, whoever is wearing the costume becomes the people who come on the production crew, so it's like always rotating.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the creation of Mr. Bonzo, a bulbous, splotchy, chaotic nightmare of a character that would run around screaming his own name. He doesn't remember who came up with the name, but it stuck regardless. For his debut, they invited one Gobart Rimbo, a chef who was looking to bolster his reputation after a disparaging article that was written about him.
Called Britain's Snootiest Chef.
He was to do a cooking show for children, and halfway through, a man in the Mr. Bonzo suit would to burst out of the party for a prank. The prank worked perfectly at first. Rambo was terrified, but attempted to carry on with the show. However, when Mr. Bonded attempted to cuddle him, Rambeau attacked him with a frying pan and broke the suit actor's arm. Nigel took that as a cue to wrap up the segment. Nigel thought the show was a failure, but surprisingly he received a number of messages from the audience telling him how much they loved Mr. Bonzo. He would go on to become a recurring character on the show, and as he would go through a number of suit actors throughout the years, it became a sort of ritual that anytime someone joined the production crew, they would wear the suit until the next person joined. Eventually, people became wise to the so-called prank, and the You Got Buried segment was cut. Mr. Bonzo then became a main on Saturday on 6 mascot, even outlasting Mr. Six. What was followed by Nigel describes as Bonzo Mania.
Yeah, the Bonzo.
So yes, this is when booms in sales, merch, theme park, everything took a turn for the worst, as it usually does. However, when Terrence Menke, a serial murderer who was responsible for 11 deaths, seemingly having killed them in various handmade mascot costumes, the last of the murders was committed in a crude mockery of Mr. Bonzo's costume. He was given the moniker the Bonzo Butcher.
And Nigel starts getting really mad at this.
Yes, as this basically just ruins Mr. Bonzo's brand.
Yeah, but as they're having this interview, Gunnelton is like the Bonzo Butcher, and then he starts getting very, very, very upset about it.
So Bonzo Lane's construction was put on halt, and a Saturday Night 6 stopped production. Strangely, however, Mr. Bonzo still kept something of an audience.
Nigel's still selling merch.
Yeah, Nigel's still...
that.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care who buys it, I just need to make money. But basically, it's turned into this like meme and this thing on the darker side of the internet.
He also says that he's more of a prisoner on the show than he ever was, or something like that. Geraldine asks him about more recent rumors, which Nigel's taken aback. He starts talking over her as she talk about the witness statement from the 3 murder cases over the last 5 years, which allegedly reported that someone in the Mr. Bonzo costume was on the scene. Nigel gets up to leave when Geraldine and tells Geraldine not to contact us ever again. After Geraldine questions further, goes on a tirade about how Mr. Bonzo was supposed to be funny and lighthearted. He laments the fact that he still has to deal with the whole situation and asks why Mr. Bonzo won't let him go. And then the recording cuts after that.
Okay, and then we have Cullen and Celia.
At the OIAR,
Yes.
Celia is surprised because he's supposed to be on a mental health break. Cullen states that he
reckons talking to Freddy is gonna fix him faster.
Yeah.
Trying to fix it.
Then they talk shortly about how Sam and Alice are away in Manchester while Gwen is on her, quote, mission. Colin asks that Celia does not tell Lena that he's there. Then we cut to Sam and Alice in the ruins of the Magnus Institute, Manchester. It's raining heavily and Sam finds an old container, attempting to break it while Alice jokes that he will only find tetanus and mulch. At first, Alice seems to be correct until Sam finds a key and requests that he stays 10 minutes longer. This when we cut to Gwen, who arrives at Nigel Dickerson's home, attempting to give him a letter that Lena assigned him to deliver, before he states that the letter is not for him, and leads her into the house. He begins playing the song Mr. Bonzo's on his way.
Go listen to it if you haven't.
As Bonzo himself, the man, enters the room. Gwen is horrified while Nigel warns her that it doesn't like it when she stares at it. Eventually, Gwen gives the letter to Mr. Bonzo before it is promptly eaten by him. Mr. Bonzo excitedly leaves the house and runs into the night. Nigel states that Gwen's employer should be thankful and tells her to get out of Mr. Bonzo's house.
And then Sam and Alice.
Back at the Institute.
They're back digging around.
They're digging around, and Alice finds a nameplate that reads Archie. Before they contemplate the full name, Sam suggests Archipelago, while Alice says it could be something like Archivists. And as they banter on the floor, the floor collapses beneath them to reveal what Sam assumes to be a cesspit, which he almost falls into, losing the key in the process. Sam and Alice leave, but as the recording continues, we hear the sounds of the key being picked up, dragged across the floor, and used to unlock a trapdoor from which heavy breathing creature emerges.
And that's where... Oh, the final scene is recorded on a tape recorder.
Yes, the final scene of the Magnus Institute office is heard via a tape recorder, just like every episode of the Magnus Archives. Spooky. We'll learn more about Mr. Bonzo in Mag 12.
Yeah. They had, I don't know if I talked about this earlier, but the April Fool's special was just like an hour long of the Mr. Bonzo theme song. And Mr. Bonzo, a lot of UK listeners will, everyone's listening, know this, but Mr. Bonzo is based on Mr. Blobby, of course.
Blobby. I'll put 2 images of the 2 fellers side by side.
Please go delve into Mr. Blobbyland if you can. He is fantastic, and I love him. They had like a Watch Mojo top 10
Mr. Blobby.
good waste of like 20 minutes.
But anyways, this has been Protocol Bash Part 1. Part 2 we will hopefully be doing sooner, and up to release for the Magnus Protocol Season 2 on episode 27 that we will be covering, like, maybe that day? I don't know. We'll decide that when that comes along. But, of course, continue listening to the Protocol as we build up this Protocol Bash event towards the start of Season 2 of Magnus Protocol. Do the things you do in the descriptions below, and we will see you next time on Protocol Bash Part 2. Protocol Bash.